Are you trapped in this invisible prison of worrying about what other people think of you, or trying to manage other people's opinions, or worst of all, not living life the way that you want to because you're worried about other people's judgments? Well, this short video is going to share the Buddhist advice for how to stop caring what other people think. Okay, so step one is just simply to realize that what other people think about you is not about you. It's not about us. It's about them. If they have certain judgments, certain ways of viewing the world, that's a reflection of their own history, their own environment, the people they surround themselves with, their own wounds. It's not it's not about us. And the sad thing would be to live a life that isn't authentic to ourselves, where we're not comfortable just because we're thinking about what other people might say about us or think about us. Okay, step two is to realize that we don't occupy a huge amount of space in other people's minds. People aren't thinking about us that much. I had a student a long time ago at this Buddhist center, and she had gone to a Buddhist retreat in Europe. And one of the things they did, an activity, was to hike up this little mini mountain, this butte or something. And at some point, she slid down this wet hill and had mud covering her whole front, the whole front of her. There was nowhere to go or change. There was nothing that she could do. She just had to walk around completely covered in mud. And you know what was crazy? No one noticed. The whole day, nobody noticed because people really aren't looking at you that much. They're thinking about themselves. They're concerned about themselves and probably what other people are thinking about them. So just recognize that maybe we occupy 5 minutes of someone's mind, but we have to live the whole of our own life. I don't think that we should trade our life and living in a way that we're happy and we feel free for 5 minutes in other people's minds, you know? So that is one recognition. The second step is that recognition that people probably aren't thinking about us as much as you imagine. And then, thirdly, part of that is that we have so much to lose by not living authentically. And so, what we can do is ask ourselves, what is really important to me? Is living my own life a life of freedom where I can feel like I'm myself and I can feel comfortable and I can be happy? Is that worth more to me than what other people think? Okay, let me give you an example of this kind of trade off. So, this is about a Buddhist master called Geshe Langri Tangpa. And he lived about 1,000 years ago in Tibet. He wrote this wonderful book, 8 Verses of Training the Mind. And he was a very serious monk. He was like the head monk of this monastery. And he was renowned in the local area of being a really devout monk. And at one point, this woman, she had lost several children. Several of her children had died. And someone told her, like a soothsayer, someone that, made predictions back in Tibet at that time, said that this baby that she just had, this little girl, would die unless she brought the baby and gave it to Langri Tangpa. And she was so afraid to lose her baby and afraid that Langri Tangpa would refuse because how could he keep a baby in a monastery? So when he was teaching this discourse, there was 1,000 people, 1,000 other monks in attendance. She walked straight up to him while he was teaching and said in front of everyone, "Here, Here is your baby. You take care of her. Claiming that he was the father. And you know what Langri Tangpa did? He just wrapped that baby up in his robes, finished teaching, and kept that baby with him. And he raised that little girl. He never said that he wasn't the father. You know, he wouldn't be able to raise that baby in the monastery if anyone knew that it wasn't his child. That's just not what they did. So he never said anything. And later, when the woman found that the child was healthy and happy, she thought, oh, maybe I can take her back now. So she came back for her little girl, and Langri Tongpa just kindly gave her back to her mom. After spending years loving her and raising her, he just gave her back to the mom. And then the other monk said, well, I thought that was your child. Nope, I wasn't the father. He cared nothing about his reputation. And you know, they must have been talking. And I mean, really talking. Like, oh my gosh, how do you get her pregnant? This is Dick. What are we going to do about it? He just ignored everything. He did not care. What was more important to him was that baby that he had to raise and to love and to care for. That was the most important. You know, this is a more modern take on it. This other lady on Facebook now, or maybe it's Instagram, I can't remember which, but she's like monetized like her life. Okay. And so she's on video all the time, making videos. And apparently she does really, really well just by sharing everything. And she says she puts on videos where her house is a mess in the background and she looks terrible. And people say all these nasty things about her, but she loves it because every comment just has the algorithm pushing more and more people to her. And she's like, I am just crying all the way to the bank because it's just not important to her what people say. It doesn't matter. And if we go back to the first step, which is what people say is about them and not us, what would she even care? You know, it's it's like a fiction. And we can't even know what other people are thinking, can we? You know, someone might say, "Oh, look at her, she's gay, blah blah blah." And they might say something really mean like, "Oh, you gay." I don't know what they'd say, but something like that. But inside, they might be thinking, oh, I hope nobody thinks I'm gay because they're secretly gay. I'm just saying, you don't know what's going on inside. And the more um, cruel someone is, the more you think, why? Why are you bothering? Why are you so worked up? You know, living a life of freedom is something I've always done. You know, I came out in the sixth grade, which is maybe it was seventh grade. I get those confused, but I was little at a time when it wasn't very accepted or even like known about. I mean, the kids, at least my age. But no one ever said anything that I know of, or I didn't pay attention to it or something. But I just was going to live my life the way that I want to live. You know, and I have a good friend that he came out in his 60s, like 62, and finally came out of the closet. Before that, had never had a long-term relationship. But he lived this life that where he couldn't feel free for 60 years. Then he moved to another country and he was able to live there, you know, because he thought were more accepting. But I bet you people would have been accepting right here in America. They certainly are of me. And I live in South Florida. Okay. I know. And I know that there are conservatives in my neighborhood that say such nice things to me, like, you're the coolest person in the neighborhood. I know that's what one person said that I know is a strong conservative. That people, you know, a lot of times they like you one on one, and it doesn't matter these outside judgments or why they make these judgments. You know, what is it in their identity that they're holding on to that they need to make judgments about others or attack others. Those are their wounds. But let's not let their wounds affect our life. So, my thought to you is to reframe the way that you think about this. And this is the reframing. What other people say about me or think about me is not about me. It's about them. It's not about me. It's about them. Like every time you see your mind going in that direction, oh, what are they thinking? Well, why did they make this comment? And oh, they're saying, just think what they're saying isn't about me. It's about them. And maybe you even can see it in the light of compassion, that they must be suffering a lot to be so unkind or so cruel or so judgmental. It's not about us, what they say. It's about them. And in conclusion, I want you to, I don't know how to phrase this, but I want you to try to root yourself in this knowledge that you are perfect, just the way you are. You are perfection. You're wonderful and lovely and perfect. You know how I can prove this to you? Well, the next time you go outside, because you need to touch grass, look at a squirrel and think, is that squirrel not perfect? I mean, what's wrong with that squirrel? Nothing. The squirrel's perfect. I'm sure in squirrel world, I don't know. Is it that some have bushier tails, some are thinner, some are fatter? Is it better to be fatter for like winter? Or do you see what I'm saying? No, the squirrel's perfect the way it is. And we too are perfect. We're a perfect human. We might be growing and evolving, and that squirrel might be growing and evolving. I don't know. But we are perfect at every stage that we're at, wherever we're at. So try that little experiment next time you go touch grass. It could be a squirrel or a bird or a butterfly. It's perfect. And you too are perfect the way you are. So if you enjoyed this, you found some benefit, please subscribe. It's a brand new channel. I'm really trying. So if you could like, comment, whatever, I would really appreciate it. Thanks so much.